So welcome to another In the Frame video podcast from OSBD. Today I'm absolutely delighted that we've got Joel Wilson with us, an independent filmmaker who made, for me, probably one of the most extraordinary debut films that anybody could ever make. And we will get to hear a lot more about that soon. So, hey Joel, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This is good. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. So, Joel, why not just tell us a little bit about your background and how you made that sort of segue into kind of wanting to make films?
All right. Well, I grew up in a few different countries, Ireland, Germany, and then the UK. And when I was in Germany, when I was at school, started to really want to make films, and I ended up making a E.T. ripoff at school, and that was like that buzz of having people watch your film. It was amazing, and yet when I came to the UK, my primary form of art was rap music. I was a lyricist, and then I ended up, becoming, for a short time, that was my full-time job, was a rapper. But alongside this, I was studying media and film. And so there just came a time when I thought, you know what, I need to put more of my creative energy into filmmaking, because this is really where my heart is, and that love of storytelling, seeing a well-made film. And I think at that time, that the tie-in between my lyrics and what I was doing there with the films I wanted to make were films that had kind of a sense of playfulness and a mischief to them, where they were kind of high concept things where you think it's this kind of film, but then it's about this. There's a reveal in it. So not necessarily emotionally engaging, but just something that was fun, and that kind of played with the genres, or played with the concept. And so in the early 2000s, started making music videos for friends that people I love their music. And at the same time, I was thinking, really want to do this piece of rap theater, but then I thought, actually, it doesn't have to be theater. This could be, I think, if we could contain it into a film. And that's where I started to have this idea of a medieval film, but in which all the dialogue was rhymed, and pretty clearly the main kind of rhyming was rap.
Wow. So yeah, so I was kind of going to move on to the Quickener. So I remember when you first started talking about this, I was like, oh, like, wow, okay, this is completely genre bending. This is out there. I've never heard of anything like this ever before. So the little I know about how hard it is to make films, even if you go down that really normal kind of genre route of it's going to be a horror or a comedy or a drama or an action or a thriller, here you were thinking, I'm going to do something completely and utterly different. So as you started to talk to people about that and the whole concept and idea of making a film of that nature, what was the kind of response you were getting back from people?
Well, I ended up speaking to some people that were really who were involved in rap theater and narrative, and they said, "Oh, man, this is a big thing." In fact, one person said, "This is something you really work up towards. You don't want to spend time trying to organize and find the funding and everything for this project. You need to kind of have a few things under your belt first." But it was something I was most passionate about. It was kind of like if you have an idea that's burning inside of you, and then like 2 years later it's still there, that was the main one. So I got different responses, mainly people not knowing what to do with not knowing what to say, because they said, I mean, it sounds terrible, to be honest. If you present it in a certain way, medieval rap, I mean, the images that conjures up in my head is like, oh, that sounds super corny. That's like the worst of both worlds. Not that doesn't sound like something that would work together. So no, I understood that people didn't believe in the project, or dismissed it, or said, "Oh yeah, go and make it and see what happens." And I guess what happened was there was two people that I had met that were very gifted writers, rap writers and actors, and meeting them, both from Birmingham. I mean, they're really world class rap writers. And when I met them, I thought, okay, this now can be made. Now I definitely know I can make it. Not only were they, were they people somewhere in the world, but it was actually people on my doorstep.
But what you're describing is that kind of the kind of the jigsaw puzzle kind of that I often refer to in terms of making films, that kind of getting the right pieces in place, which can be different, but you certainly need to have the building blocks, the foundations of a project to enable it to kind of go forward. I'm interested in that obviously had this idea of rap and film, and this idea of basing it around a kind of a medieval period. Had you already got a story in mind? Did it start with a story and an idea of narrative that you then thought, oh, this could work really well by fusing these art forms? Or was it kind of, I want to fuse something around this art form, and then the story came?
It started with two things. One was I was listening to rappers, like if anyone is familiar with Anticon, which is a little independent label, or Freestyle Fellowship, and then people I knew personally that were able to, with so much skill, tell stories through rap. I mean, it's difficult to do that and make it sound effortless, like you're not even trying. But when you see that, you're like, okay, this is an area to be more explored. And the idea of people's rap flows kind of mirroring the characters' personalities. So seeing certain rappers being able to rap as other people, I'm like, this is great, because very much like when you're developing a character for a fictional film, what is it? What are the elements to the character? How do they deliver lines? What's their kind of, and then realizing that rappers' styles can often be very, very different, could actually end up being a part of that character. I was like, this is so exciting. So that was a concept thing of like, oh, this is playing with character and voices and tonality. And then the other thing that happened was I did have a story, and it was the story of a gargoyle on the day it ends up on a cathedral, and then the day that it's removed. So it was going to be set in two different eras. It was going to be set in 13th century or 12th century or 14th century, back in the Middle Ages, and the other part of the film was going to be set in the 21st century. So the idea was have two parts of it, and then I ended up just scrapping the 21st century part. I thought this is way more interesting.
So you talked about, obviously you managed to convince a couple of really, really notable people from that world to get involved, which gave the project some credence and credibility. You were obviously working in a mixture of roles at this point. You're kind of initiating creative, you're the writer, you're the producer, you're the director.
Yeah.
Often for emerging filmmakers, that kind of multiplicity of roles is just a reality as people are just trying to get things made. Talk us through a little bit about both the frustrations and the pros and cons of being in that position, and how you navigated yourself through it.
Okay. I think the what initially my thoughts were, I tell you what, if I can co-write this, which in itself is an audacious idea, that somehow we were going to get rappers to be able to write their own parts, and you're writing as a different person, not as yourself. So this is not autobiographical, but you're writing as a fictional character. And that ended up, we explored that for quite a long time. It didn't end up working. So it ended up being me and two other writers that kind of took on the lion's share of all the writing for the character. So that kind of worked. That was an experiment. Like, let's try people writing their own parts. And then that didn't happen. Just too much of a big ask for people to know what each other were doing in scenes. But it did mean that, I got to visit various castles and medieval buildings, which it was enjoyable, just kind of doing that, doing the recce's, going to see, oh, this place is 400 years too new. And because I didn't have I had like one friend had pledged some money, and I was like, this is great. The first 7,000 of pounds made me think, okay, this is great. I can ask other people. But because I knew the budget was quite small, then I guess that kind of meant that I knew just what I could try to accomplish in terms of bare bones production. It also meant that when I found locations, I tried to find locations where they didn't need to be dressed up much more, because there really wasn't going to be that budget for, production design.
Yeah, so I mean, what you're articulating there is that you've got to be realistic, haven't you, about if you're, I mean, obviously some people would dream to have £7,000 to make a film. You needed in the end, a lot more money to make this because it was an ambitious project. But that idea that unless you've got a very significant amount of money that's going to pay for a large crew and lots of all the peripherals around, locations and art direction and set dressing and props and all the rest of it, you've got to think, really cannily about what you can do to save money. But going back to that kind of multiplicity of roles, did you eventually sort of find a team where you were able to have people that could take on sort of the producing stuff, that would kind of save you having to do that, as well as you having to, obviously you're trying to think about it from a directorial point of view. So, tell us how that kind of evolved, and then eventually how you got, the film actually into production.
Well, yes, a team evolved. Really, the thing that was, with the people that were most on board were the people that were co-writing it. So those were a few of the other actors, and so that meant that because they were pouring their themselves into the writing, they cared. And but in terms of the nuts and bolts of prepping and contracts and all those things, I did almost all of that up until just maybe two months before production, and then thankfully I have got a few other people to come in and take on help with those roles of being producer. But I did the full prepping as a director, and the producer role. It is really ill-advised, and the thing that clearly, this is something that I'm sure other people have said in these conversations, is that you want a team of people and you're not always going to get people that are in it for the same reasons. You're not always going to get people that care as exactly the same amount as you. But if you have someone who shares your passions and has got a similar sense of aesthetic, then it's just great. It's just great going into a project with a team of people and a sense of camaraderie. And I think with this project, I felt worn out by the time we got to production. And then, to tell you what, the post-production, I won't go into all the details, but post-production had enough of its challenges that I was worn out afterwards as well. So that it's such an obvious lesson, but filmmaking is a team effort. And maybe the thing that I didn't quite get was that once the production had finished, that people would just go Joel sorting the rest of it out. And that was something I didn't quite. I felt like people had now, like, now they've actually helped, that we've made the film, we've actually shot it, and now when I ask people to help out, then they'll say yeah, but that didn't really happen. It was a lot more of people going, oh, now it's post-production, Joel will do that.
I think what you're expressing there is something I've come across many times in the past, and why often you can find that a huge amount of energy has gone into the development, the pre-production, and the production of a film. Particularly so like a short film, and loads of people are given time and energy to make that happen. It's very exciting. Well, it gets to a point eventually where it's very exciting. It's going to happen. You're on the film shoot. All of those things are happening. You're having to deal with whatever's coming your way. And then it's all done, and there's this famous thing, it's a wrap, and maybe you have a whatever version of a wrap party to call, pat yourselves on the back. But that's only the film 2/3 made, or even some would argue 50% made, because then the post-production is a massive part of what comes next is how do you edit it into something that's actually going to be really good with all the various things that come with it. So I think that's yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, what you've done well is you managed to get through that and you made a film. Quite a few people get completely stuck in post-production and then the film never actually sees the light of day. Because I think the important thing that you said there, which is for people to pick up on, is it's incredibly tiring. So you have to go into this thing understanding that you are going to be, you are going to be probably pretty exhausted by the development phase, the pre-production phase, the production phase, the post-production phase, and so having that sense of you've got to give yourself time, you've got to build a team, like you're saying, a team that then actually will go with you the whole way. Not that obviously, certain people in that won't go all the way with you through post-production, but you need some key people to go through it with you. So talk us through.
And since we're talking about building a team, I mean, I made it's a half an hour film. So that's an odd shape of a film. The film festivals weren't that interested because it was too long, really, for most programs. It's too long or it's too short. Maybe on streaming services now, maybe if I had the energy and time and money, I could have, pushed it a little bit, because they don't care so much maybe about how long a program or film is. But for people who are getting going, the rule of thumb is do something that's in one location. You can do a great sci-fi film or a horror film that's set in the now. So you're not spending all that time on necessarily. So I'm not just advocating, just make a simple film because that's all you can handle right now. But I'm just saying don't get from me that you have to try to take on a mammoth film. If you've got various ideas and you have someone that is equally excited by an idea as you, then make that happen. But certainly if you choose a place where it's like one location, even if it's just one set, but like it's certainly one location and 2 or 3 actors max, there's so much you can do with just that format. And you'll still get tired, but there's I mean, what I was trying to do was like juggle so many things, including having one of your friends, Chantal, from New Zealand.
That's right.
I think she made 16 costumes for our film.
That's right. Yeah.
So there was a lot of juggling. If you're doing something which is, I mean, people just thought it was a dumb idea. I was trying to make a period piece on a shoestring budget. It's a stupid idea.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing that Chantal came all the way out from New Zealand. And as you mentioned, she worked on our feature film, The Insatiable Moon, was amazing. Because we're chatting to you about a specific film in this video podcast, we've got that luxury where we, when Luke edits it later, we can show a few clips. So I wanted to get you to talk about maybe a scene in the movie that we can show, and then you can maybe talk about a particular kind of complexity or difficulty or something you had to overcome in that particular scene.
Yeah, well, there's the scene we're going to look at is where Osbert and Tafara, who are the protagonists, they are at home, and the moneylenders, that his heavies, is basically his cronies, are paying them a visit. They've come to the door. They're banging on the door saying that you now have a deadline. If you do not pay up, you're dead. So this is a scene where it's shot. Just you see the two sides of the door, and the thing that maybe about this scene that is somewhat unusual in the film is that it's much clearer that the rhythms of the rap. Some scenes feel a lot more that the rap is more gentle, or it's drawn out, and you're not hearing that syncopation all the time in it. Whereas this one, you hear this beat that's throughout the scene. So it's clearly a rap film. And John Berkovich, who is a kind of well-known slam poet, is one of the baddies, and the other one is Mantis, who's a rapper from North Brum. And just the dynamic between those two characters is actually really lovely in that scene. They're kind of winding up the people they're threatening, so that the threat is quite playful, and it's got within it. I've got some really super nerdy medieval references in there,
and we'll take a wee look at that now.
Osbert, open the door!
Our wager is hiding inside. We've spoken before.
Have we loosened your bowels yet? Are you soaking the floor? You cannot spin a yarn once I've broken your jaw.
Mark the day artisan St. Boniface is upon us.
And you promised
with that face as honest as a Madonna's.
The whisperer demands his pay.
Cough up a bag of silver, sir. Keep this creature at bay.
Marcus, please, am I not a reasonable man?
Nah, you're a mad dog who sinks his teeth into hands.
Make to flee, yes, and get crippled by hounds, transformed into a corpse, blood dribbling down.
As a matter of fact, it need not come to that. Osbert knows we have eyes on every corner of the map. Are you listening? You want to see this villain get vicious?
We'll take your missus and scrape out your innards with scissors.
Oh, I miss these little visits.
His next guest will give him killer kisses in minutes of bloated and blistered grimace.
In summation, any object to the whisperer's scorn will wish that he or she had never been born, and you've been warned.
You have till dusk. No use running for your life.
You better have something for us.
Your money or your wife.
So when we were shooting it, the door that it's shot at, we couldn't get to the other side of the door. It was a part of a museum, a space, so there was no way of getting to the other side. So what we did was we just shot the scene as if it's the inside of the house, and then we just switched it around and used the same door, same side of the door, pretending that it's the other side. So that was quite a fun thing to, because even when I look at that, I don't go, oh, it's the same side of the door. I look at it and go, you know, I'm fooled by it myself. So yeah, it worked out. I think it's an effective scene. It's also quite short and compact. So that was one of the things that worked quite well.
I mean, what's fascinating about that stuff is that you've already alluded towards it about, you know, kind of don't lessen the creativity, don't lessen the ideas, but be pragmatic about when you're starting out about what's possible, you know, and as you've said already, there's if you can come up with some great ideas that don't involve multiple locations and lots of actors, you can do some really interesting things. And like that, if you're presented with a real difficulty that we can't get the other side of the door, then just literally step back and go, okay, how do we do this? And as we all know, there's some literally some kind of, you know, film sort of, you know, gold that can come out of that, like the Monty Python clippity with the horses, exactly. Where you know, they wanted the big white charger horses, but they couldn't afford it. Their producers wouldn't allow them to spend that extra money, so they had to come up with that idea, which is now kind of comedy genius. So that's so in terms of you're making the film, maybe just give us a few kind of top tips when you're in the midst of that kind of a film being made. What are the things that you've had to do in pre-production to ensure that as much as possible the filming process can go smoothly?
Yeah.
And then whilst you're in that filming process, what are you doing to try and ensure that you kind of nothing goes wrong?
Okay. Well, this is something that a lot of filmmakers swear by, and that is a storyboard and a shot list. So before you go into any particular, often a shot list changes because locations don't work out or you have to change things around. But going into a day where there's lots of moving parts, where you've got lots of actors and different locations, knowing that these are the shots we need to get, and a storyboard. Often the storyboard's already being looked at. Maybe yourself and the DOP you've looked at it together, and you think, okay, we kind of know how it's going to run. It gives also, it's actually really helpful with having the storyboards. Sometimes you can show it to an actor or show it to other people in the production to say, now this is actually what it's going to look like, even if it's very sketchy. So storyboard, shot list, completely saves time. And as a director, and if, whatever role you kind of major role you're playing, it gives you a lot more confidence that I think we can do this, because that's something you can check off. You can actually check those scenes off, and I think we all have all this. Now, if you have often if you have a great person shooting, or sometimes a first AD, they'll say, actually, you know what? I think if you could just add this extra shot, I think this will really add more to it. Or, but you'll have known, hey, we got all the shots that we needed to get, and maybe this extra one will do the trick. So that made a massive difference. And just having gone to all the locations with the director of photography ahead of time, so there was no kind of coming into a room and going, oh, this is wrong, this is all wrong. That had all been done before.
And I guess presumably there's a certain level. So, I mean, you're talking about the creative process there, which is really important and definitely needs to be collaborative. Where you're listening, particularly if you've been fortunate enough to get some experienced people to work on your film with you, to listen to that experience and to take note of some of the things that they're saying. But I guess also the pragmatic sides of filmmaking, like how long is it going to take you to get from one location to the next? What do you do if the weather changes on that day? Do you have a plan B of somewhere else to go so you don't have to delay the production? How are people going to be fed? Is there access to food? If you're going to have to buy everything from a local shop and everyone gets sandwiches and a bag of crisps, or can you make food? So I guess, were you aware that all of that stuff was having to be sorted out as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in the run up, the part of it is sparked by fear. Sorry, but it is. There's this fear that you're ultimately responsible to get the best out of everyone, but also to treat everyone like we're in this together, and you're not working for me. We're making this together, and this is and to make sure that people have hot food, not just not just thinking of that being an afterthought. So absolutely, you're going thinking, I want this to be a good experience with people, and clearly, if you treat people with that respect, and the funny thing is that I'd hear from other film directors saying, "Oh, just make sure that you treat the director of photography especially good, because just he or she is the one. If you get them on board, like everything else will work out." And someone else would say, "Oh, just make sure that it's the this person, this particular actor is well taken care of, because that works out." So I began to think, like, I just need to treat everybody like royalty. And that fear is also because we're doing it on a shoestring. So people were being paid, but very so little that I felt like I'm not going to ask like people to do stuff that unless they're being taken care of. So yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, when it got to the production, certain days I was crying. I just something happened which I haven't really talked about on camera, but a weapon, a medieval weapon, almost impaled one of our gaffer, and he got a little scar on his face, and this weapon fell from a great height and almost got him, and I was so grateful that he ended up with just a little scar on his face.
I always wondered where that scar came from.
So
he's been good at keeping quiet about that.
Yeah, we're not really. We still haven't talked about kind of why it happened or where it happened. But it was an odd situation, and that was the one moment where I felt like, okay, if we got through this moment, I think everything else, is going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I mean that's something else to take note of, isn't it? I think there's a real kind of error that you can make, certainly when you're starting out, is there's a kind of a naivety around the whole, hey, we're making a film and the whole creative process, but you are often putting yourself in, or can be putting yourself in, situations where people are working long hours, or could be in slightly difficult situations, or you're trying to attempt things which could have dire consequences if you don't get them right. And actually it is very, very important as an emerging filmmaker to go into those things really with your eyes open about stuff. And but there are times, I mean, we all know of the really, really big movie franchises, Bond, Mission Impossible, all of these films, they've had people die on them. It's pretty serious stuff when it gets to a certain level.
I mean, the things that I looking back at the project and what I admit that I felt like certain things didn't work out in the film, and I do have regrets, and maybe you're not supposed to, but I certainly do. One was I didn't have more help on post-production, and I didn't ask for help for quite a while in the post-production, and I just tried to do stuff by myself as I got more and more worn down. And I would have probably maybe taken some of the money for production and put it more into post-production, so I could have paid some other people to kind of do that. So that's one thing I definitely feel like that was an error of mine. I would have had more blood in the film. That would have been quite easy to do. The film should have been a little bit more bloody. I would have liked to have a little bit more fighting in the film as well. Again, it wasn't a kind of a fighting kind of film. It's a people talking to each other. It's a drama. It's a kind of a thriller drama with a supernatural element to it. But yeah, it would have been. I think people were like, "Oh, medieval! Oh, fisticuffs, violence!" And I was like, maybe I should have just given people given a little bit more of that violence, at least another little fight. And I kind of erred in it was in the post-production that I erred more on the side of not so much syncopated rapping, and it feels like it's like I don't know, it's spoken word poetry in a way more than rap. And I think other people would have said, no, Joe, kind of make it more rappy. So I think there's scenes in it where I'm like, this is exactly what I had in my head. It was amazing. Even in one of the opening scenes, you see this woman's mouth as she's praying, and it's like just a super low depth focus. And I was just like, I cannot believe this is exactly what's in my head. So that happened a few times. I'm like, this is so good. So I need to really soak that in and be appreciative of the scenes that work just exactly how. I mean, without going into all the detail again, people can just watch the film. It's on YouTube. It's also on Vimeo. The YouTube version now is got a nice new grade on it, which is quite fun. But one of the other things I decided was that the antagonist, the bad guy, couldn't speak properly. He whispers, and so he has an interpreter. And the idea for me was like, what if I had like a backwards echo? So someone's echo came in before the something you could hear. This is just a bizarre idea. I was like, can I create this where two characters are basically speaking with the same voice, but they're kind of back and forth? So that in itself was audacious and didn't quite work the way I wanted. But I was like, what a ridiculous idea. And I gave it a go. It was certainly an experiment which allows me now to see what more can be done in this. I mean, I'm still raring to go. I've got more, not only just regular narrative films plans and things I'm working on, but I'm still raring to go for another rap narrative or two or three.
Wow, great.
And there's actually more rappers with the capacity to do that.
So I was going to. I mean, obviously the film got made, the film got premiered, it came out. I mean, just tell us very briefly a little bit about that and how that felt, seeing it on the cinema screen when it was finished, and then kind of bring us up to speed a little bit with since then, how have you been developing as a filmmaker, and sort of where you're heading now?
I felt mainly a sense of relief, really, because I poured so much into it, and because it was littered with those little disappointments and frustrations, and just I watch a scene and I think, oh man, so many things went wrong, so I was relieved when I got to see it, and And there's a few people that saw it that kind of got it in a way, which on a level which I wasn't expecting. Like one person actually said they could see the Renaissance ideals in the film. So the actual theology pre-Renaissance was different, how people saw themselves. And I was like, I cannot believe that they picked up on that. But actually that was part of what I was trying to write, was people with a different mentality. And I remember watching Ridley Scott's Kingdom of Heaven and thinking, these people are talking like they're in the 21st century. So this is meant to be set in medieval times, but their worldview doesn't feel medieval at all. And so for my film, I was like, I want at least some of the people to really feel like you're getting their world, the way they see themselves is the way medieval people see themselves. And so the fact that someone watched the film and picked up on that is really exciting and satisfying. Now, in terms of what I've done since then, I've done more music videos. As a part of my job, I make short documentary films. And I think through the help of many people, including yourself, Pip, and the Foot Up project, which was a mentoring scheme, which I really, really appreciated a lot, which was trying to say, what are your visions? What do you want to see happen in the next 3 years of your film life? I saw that the thing that I most wanted to do was to move away from the cleverness, the high concept, and move more towards the emotive, and just trying to make films that have that moment of where you feel a deeper connection to the characters. And so that's what I'm in terms of my writing, my filmmaking, the moments that I now tend to kind of feel like, oh, this is where the success is not, oh, isn't that a weird idea that's been realized, but rather, oh, I connect with that character, or that was a beautiful moment where someone felt like I connect with that person on screen. So I've been working on a few documentary ideas, documentary features, and I'm writing fictional work as well.
That sounds great. I look forward to seeing more stuff that comes out.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Joel. And don't forget, everybody, thank you for watching. If you're watching this, do connect with us on osbd.org, our website, and also on our social media platforms. Do get in touch with us as well. We're trying to develop and build a community around emerging filmmakers. So we're wanting to do these things to kind of try and support and help and develop people. So yeah, Joel, thanks for sharing about that. It's going to be great that we can, in this, people who would have seen some of the film, and also at the end we'll make sure that we put all the links in there where they can go and watch the whole thing and see it in its fullness, which is absolutely fantastic. So so thanks everybody for watching, and catch us next time on our next podcast.